Um, no, I don't. Because you can go to executive session. I'll call the meeting to order of the Natrona County Board of County Commissioners for its regular session Tuesday, May 21st, 2024, 5 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order and roll call.
Commissioner Ware?
Present.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I'd make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss personnel.
Second.
Motion's been made to go into executive session and seconded. Any discussion? The only point of discussion I'd have is that we will reconvene at 5:30 for our Pledge of Allegiance. All in favor of entering into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We're in executive session. Thank you.
Come on. There we go. There we go.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda items.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Laird, seconded by Commissioner Friel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We now are at the public comment section of the meeting. I appreciate once again a number of individuals that I believe are here to speak in regard to the potential gravel pit on state lands in the Squaw Creek Coates Road area. How many people are wishing to speak tonight, or who may want to speak tonight? All right. What I would say is that we would invite those who wish to speak on other issues, the courtesy to come in front of us. And if you have matters other than the Squaw Creek Coates Road gravel issue, please approach and share your comments. All right, then we'll just open it up in general for public comment. Somebody's got to be first. You do it. You do it. No, you do it. No, one at a time. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Susan Anderson, and I wanted to, first of all, point out some of the similarities between this and what happened in 1980 with a proposed mine on Bessemer Mountain, and that was by the senior Neil McMurray. And there was a lot of comment, and one of the most telling opposition points was about the history of this whole area. And I wanted to bring some of that up. I looked on Google Maps, and so this area is 3.3 miles from Fort Caspar, 2.3 miles from the area, the suspected area of the Platte River battle, where the men were killed who were from Fort Caspar. During what I would like to argue is that among the many ways of looking at this are that the historic value of all of Casper Mountain, but particularly that part of it, is pretty high. And the people on the Oregon Trail wrote in their diaries about Casper Mountain. And I do remember that Mr. True, when he was talking, said, well, there are special places like the Tetons and Devil's Tower that we don't touch. Well, we shouldn't touch this either because it's been a landmark for people for more than 100 years. And before that, of course, for some of the rings for the Native Americans. And I don't know much about that part of it. But I wanted to point out that historic value would be diminished considerably by a mine right there. And when people are trying to find the bones of the soldiers, they have gotten some old records that talk about trying to ascertain where on that side of the river compared to looking at the mountain the battle was. And so for all of these years, that view of the mountain has been important, and I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Riley Fars. I live at Coates Road. We have an additional almost 1,500 additional signatures, bringing it up to just shy of 7,500. We've come across about 5% of the signatures have been out-of-town people, and they've written in the notes reasons
Did
for
you say 5%?
about 5% that are out-of-town people. They're renting VRBOs. Was at a race at the Tate Pump House a couple of weeks ago and was there with a petition, and a gentleman said, oh, I'm from Nebraska. And he had his whole family there, and I said, but you came to a race in Casper. And he's like, yeah. And I said, did you come for the race in Casper? And he said, yes. So I said, please sign it. He said, we love it here. We love the mountains. We have other family here. We camp in the summertime. So, yeah, that's all. Who do I give these to?
Michelle.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name's Chris Navarro. I live at the very end of Squaw Creek Road. I've lived out there for almost 38 years, and I've been following this thing best I can, and I've had several conversations with Kyle True. In fact, after the Oil City News article by Tom Morton on May 10th, I emailed him and asked him specifically about some of the comments he made. When I couldn't hardly believe him, so I wanted to make sure that they were true. After I emailed him, he said he'd rather talk about it, so I called him. And one of his comments was that he's going to start the pit with a 15 acres LMO, and then he is planning on expanding it to 30 acres. He says he has that option. So I think he wants to use an LMO because it's got less restrictions, and then it's going to become a large mine afterwards. And he didn't deny that. So other question I asked him was, when he came to the first meeting he spoke here about a month ago, he stated on video that it was asked of him if he didn't get a CUP, if he would be denied a conditional use permit, would he look for gravel elsewhere? And he said he would. And I asked him, that's on video. I go, would you keep your word on that? And he said, haven't you ever said something that you regretted saying and that you changed your mind? I said, I have. And he said, well, that he was just going to, if a CUP is required by him by law, is the only way he's going to get one. And then I asked him about the comment about, Wyoming has a lot of special places, the Grand Teton and Devil's Tower, and I wanted to know if he was misquoted. He didn't say he was, so he said that he didn't want to comment on that. So I said, well, he says, in fact, I really don't want to answer any more of these questions because I emailed them all to him beforehand. So I said, well, you can have, if you don't want to comment, just say no comment. He says, Chris, I'm really done talking with you. And if you want to get any information more from me, you're going to have to get it on my website or a video. And then that's when I asked him, well, did you say that about, the Squaw Creek school section's nothing special? And he just said, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I said, well, you also stated that 6,500 people have signed a petition against this proposed mine. And your comment was that people have been calling you and saying that they didn't know what they were signing. And I said, how many people called you? And he said he wasn't going to comment about that either. So, no comment is one way of not answering something. And I remember the first time I called him back in February when I first heard about this. And I asked him, I said, what would you do if someone's going to build a mine behind your house? He says, Chris, I'm not going to answer that question. So there's a lot of no comments from him on the tough questions, but he did state these comments, and it was in a published article in Oil City News. And I think that, once we open the gate to him, he's going to build a big, big mine out there. And then I think once it gets going, we're not going to be able to stop him. So we got to stop him before it starts. And we have over 7,000 people, and probably most of them are from our city that don't want this. And we got a few people who do want this. So when do we use this democratic society of ours and make sure that the majority of people get to have their say in this? And I don't know. There's every part of my being says not to have that thing in there. And I'm going to fight it as hard as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the room that is in favor of a gravel pit at this location? Raise your hand. All right.
Commissioners, my name is Carolyn Griffith. I live up on Coates Road, and just wanted to present you with two letters this evening. The first one is from the Casper Mountain Preservation Alliance to Mr. True. Basically, during his infomercial, he called me out in particular, saying that, Mrs. Griffith, we've asked to meet with you, and you denied it or something on those terms, and we didn't. He had showed up at my house uninvited, unexpected on a Saturday morning on, I believe it was April 13th, and gave me an invitation for our group to meet with him on that following Monday or Tuesday, of which neither of those dates would work for us. We did get back with him and said, we might be able to meet on Thursday before a community meeting that we had scheduled at 6 o'clock. And as it turned out, that evening did not work as I thought it would either, because all of our board members couldn't be there. We only have 5, so we do try to get there, especially something that was so important to all of us. At that point, I had talked to Mr. True on this, I believe the 17th. He was going to call me back and give me some other dates. And then I think after that, he found out that we had certainly called out the fact that one of his exploration sites was too close to the site of Squaw Creek, among others, and that there was a violation, and he was called up to investigate. We did approach him out there, and at that point, he did not speak to me and wasn't happy with me at all, and never did call me back about a meeting, so I assumed at that point it was a moot point until I heard it at the meeting. And so at that point, then, we wrote him a letter and certainly said we recognize that he still wanted to meet with us, and point blank, we said we accept, and we would like these pieces of information prior to the meeting. Materials that have been shared between State Board of Land Commissioners, Office of State Loans, Investments, et cetera. But primarily the mine plan. And this is the thing, I mean, everybody's getting so wound up. We know that all the final dots aren't above all the i's and all the t's aren't crossed as far as getting an application in. But everybody's so wound up because we don't wait till they get out there with all their equipment and go, oh crap, we should have said something. So we're trying to be proactive and trying to be civil. But the longer this is going without everybody knowing really what is the plan, the more excited people are getting and the more anxious people are getting and the more upset people are getting. And so we're trying to address that as we can. You'll see in the letter we've asked for the expected primary and secondary products to be mined, total affected acres during the life of the operation. So in other words, sometimes we're hearing 30 or 15 acres and it goes to 30 acres, then it's going to be 300 total acres. I mean, it's really been confusing, not 300 acres at a time. We've also heard 1%, we've also heard scaled back 60%, but then when you hear scaled back 60%, but the acreage is bigger than we anticipated, it seems like more of the mode of operation maybe was scaled back 60%, but not necessarily the land mined. So the other things we're asking for, a list of affiliated entities that Prism Logistics is working with to include anybody else that may have an LMO associated so that possibly they can expand their 15 beyond the 15 because of somebody else being able to get in. The water, one in particular, the water source for dust mitigation during the mine and screening operations, how they're going to get all that water up there. So that was the letter to Mr. True. He did respond a few days later, and I recognize I'm about out of time, so I apologize. I'll get moving here. And he did say, he thanked me for reaching out, and I don't want to take anything out of context here. He did apologize for a misunderstanding. He was waiting to hear back from, he said, there was a misunderstanding as to who was waiting to hear back from whom about the April 18th date that was canceled. He said, unless we have new concerns that Michael Fernald did not talk about at his, he referred to it as the OSLI board meeting, but it was a SLIB meeting, that we really didn't, it may not be necessary to meet. He said, our goal is to listen to you, not to debate nor to negotiate. He said, we read through your request for information, but do not plan to make available to the CMPA any information not generally available to the public via our website, Facebook page, or YouTube page. Again, pretty not so transparent way to get information. And he said, then he did invite us to meet. If representatives from your group will agree to be videotaped at the meeting, then we will be willing to meet without other preconditions. And he gave us two dates, one in June 12th and the other of June 13th. So I'm not sure if we're just meeting for tea and cookies, since we can't negotiate, can't debate, and he's not going to tell us anything we can't get off of a Facebook page. I know we've got a Facebook page out there. They're awfully hard to control the information that's out there. We're trying to make sure people stay civil and things like that, but it's quite the challenge at times. But I certainly don't look at everything that's on Facebook and go, wow, that's a fact, and wow, that's all the information I need. I got it right there on Facebook. Wow. So anyways, that's why everybody's so upset, though. It's just, we just really don't know, and I don't know that y'all know, and we're all in that mode of trying to figure out what the rules are. So,
Well, thank you.
I
Thank you
appreciate the
for the
time.
update. I think that's useful for us to know. Okay, and you've got one for Michelle as well? Great. Yeah. That would be great, and she'll pass them down.
I'm Ruth James. I live on Squaw Creek in the old Squaw Creek Ranch House, which was built in 1918. I've lived there for nearly 30 years. This is about more than just a piece of recreational land for the people on Squaw Creek. The Coates Road access serves hundreds and even thousands of people for everything from walking the dog to walking themselves. There are a lot of people who hunt in that area because they're not able to. They're maybe elderly and they can't walk great distances, but they enjoy hunting deer and antelope and rabbits up in that area. There are people who bicycle in some major bicycle events. And the fact that this is so close to town, I think, is a very valuable resource. We don't need a gravel pit. We don't need a lake that they want to offer us. And beyond the recreational aspect, far beyond it, is what I see as a permanent and irreparable damage to the watershed down below. Mr. True, at his meeting at the Ramkota, said that he was going to start on 15 acres. Well, then he would immediately file for, it was either 30 or 35, I forget which. But that was all that he was going to have open at a time, unquote, unquote. But then he later mentioned mining the south half of the section that he started this project on, which implies a fairly immediate crawling across 320 acres. And because of the land that he has filed on and tied up, he can basically mine horizontally across the foot of the mountain, which I see as cutting the aquifer off for everything down below, which has the potential to stop the water flow in the creeks, kill the trees, brush, and vegetation below, leaving nice brown streaks of dead trees down the mountain. It has the potential to cut off the water flow in the subsurface gravels to all of the wells down below from his operation to the river. There are also some very major bogs up there. Some of them are boggy enough. Well, I was walking across one time, and it looked like I could walk from hummock to hummock, and I took a step, and one leg went in as far as it could go. And I managed to flop over on my side and get pulled out, keep on walking in a very muddy state of condition. But those bogs gather water, run off in the winter, snow melt and rain runoff. They hold it and allow the creeks down below to flow year round. I have never seen any of the branches of Squaw Creek. There are several small branches and a couple of major branches that feed in to what, by the time it reaches the river, is Squaw Creek. I have never seen those dry up. And I can certainly see them drying up with this operation. And I think that basically any state land across the entire face of the mountain, from the Hat 6 end of it all the way to the Bessemer Bend end of it, are vulnerable with any type of a mining operation, be it gravel or otherwise. And of course, at this point, it seems like the main potential danger and such is from gravel mining, but anything else that someone wants to mine offers the same permanent damage to the water sources, the watershed below, the flow into the river, and every well down the entire area. I have a small orchard of I think 8 or 9 trees and some bushes that produce berries and such. And even if he provides a well, none of us down there are going to be able to afford to water a yard like that or anything on either that well water, for which we have to pay for the delivery of, or Casper City water, either one. And I think this water consideration is of utmost importance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Evening, gentlemen. My name's Casey Coates. I live at 5458 Coates Road. I'm here representing the Field Creek Ranch, which has been in operation for well over a century in this county. Just want to say, generally, I'm for mining if it is done in a responsible and respectful manner. Responsible in the sense that it takes into consideration natural resources such as water and wildlife in this area. I'm not seeing a lot of responsibility being taken in the matter of the mine that is coming in at this moment. You know, we have many, many springs and wells in this area, and I know you've been talked to about those, so I won't belabor that point. The respect matter is, I think, something that is of more concern to me. You know, Coates Road may not be a special place to everybody, but it is definitely a special place to me. It is a special place to, you know, all the people that recreate there and everyone else that lives there. But more than that, I think it needs to be acknowledged, maybe by the commission, maybe by the rest of the county, that Natrona County in general is a special place. And we ought to take that seriously. I won't keep you much longer, but my main question to the county commission at this point in time is, if a CUP is not sought in this, which Wyoming state statute may or may not require, 185201 to be specific, does the commission intend to make a challenge to that, considering that this is a great impact to Natrona County in general?
So let me just respond. I think we are asked that question from time to time outside this meeting room. I would tell you that this really isn't going to be a question and answer session.
Sure.
But I think your question does warrant a response.
Thank you, sir.
You're not going to like the response, because
That's fair.
essentially, at the time that we have that information, we would need to consult with our legal counsel. We would need to explore our options. And then we as a commission would go into executive session and weigh the pros and cons. I would tell you that every one of these commissioners and myself have heard loud and clear at the attendance at our meetings, in our emails, in our phone calls, in our in-person meetings, that this is a very important topic to you folks and to our community and to our future community. So we would weigh our options very carefully, and one option would be to pursue litigation. But we can't make a determination. I really can't speak to it more than that at this point.
No, I appreciate that. I felt like that should be out. That should be for the public knowledge on that. I really appreciate you addressing that.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
Thank you.
Chairman, Commissioners, good to see you. I would like to think that some of my conversations and talks have been doing some wonders and good in getting through to people. We had just met with the state engineers here in Casper, and he openly admitted to me in our meeting that he absolutely agrees it would just alter and change the flow of the water. Well, he's refusing to get involved, and he told me why, and he's basically saying they're going to have to be forced to get involved. So I respect that he at least talked to me today about that. It's also interesting to see that, you know, Kyle True is now actually opened up and said this is probably going to alter, destroy, change the water. We could drill a couple wells. Okay, that's simple. A couple $100,000, no problem. 2 wells. Now we're serving 50 houses. So that throws us into a major public water source. So now we have to have disinfection and fire protection, easements, land acquisition, piping, DEQ permitting kicks us into chapter 12, so we've got to go through all those calculations. 2-year project to go through engineering, permitting, land acquisition, and construction. So I don't know if anyone's willing to allow that to the mine to take place, assuming this project happens and goes forward and provides water. So then that's awfully kind of them to allow us to go from our relatively free water to bootstrapping us to another government body. We'd have to create an HOA or a district. HOAs are generally terrible, underfunded, understaffed, underboard, struggle. I deal with a HOA out on Bessemer Bend. It's an irrigation HOA district, and they struggle. Retiring part of the community, no one in that area is working, so they struggle on all their fees. I do all their work at cost for them because one of my father-in-law's best friend lives out there, and he's 78. Nobody out there can do it, and they can't afford it, so I do the work for costs, fix it, repairs, and all that. I'm doing a project on Cactus Lane, which is an actual water district, Vista West Water. They hate it. They'd rather turn that over to the city in a heartbeat. We were putting in a water line, and you call up and you're like, okay, we need to locate your water line because we're putting in a sewer line for a new campground here, and they're witching their water lines. And it's a third party because it's not Vista West Water. They don't have staff. They don't have a crew. They don't have money. They don't have funding. We hit the water line, of course. Witching. Does work. Trust me, I've done it, but I don't rely on it. 4 hours later, they shut the water off. We drained airport tank because it's understaffed, underfunded, and no one likes Vista West Water, and no one likes to be on the board of Vista West Water. Your neighbors hate you. It just ends up being a fight. So now you're bootstrapping everyone to deal with that, and a lifetime costs. So a pump to lift that high, it's not cheap, and we're gonna have to replace them. It's probably $30,000-$40,000 pump and a backup well, backup emergency supply of water. So there's a lot more to this than just, I will drill them a couple wells and turn it over to the HOA. Thank you for getting rid of my freedom, my free water, and now I'm strapped to another government body. We're going to look into more prices, and I'm hopefully going to have a detailed layout on kind of a whole price to do a water project for Squaw Creek. I've called and got prices from vendors on pumps and disinfections and storage, and we're looking at a fire suppression calculation on that. It's not going to be a cheap project, and I don't think anyone would want to give up their freedom for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Mr. Chair,
Good evening.
Commissioners. I didn't intend to speak
Mr.
tonight.
Worker, will you?
Greg Worker, 7,000 Coates Road.
Thank you.
I did not intend to speak tonight until I'm hearing the size of this thing. And so I came up here to explain to you what Mr. Kyle True said to me on February 18th, that evening, unannounced, uncalled. He didn't notify me, unnotified. He showed up at my house late Sunday night, and he came in and explained that it was him that was doing the exploratory permits, and he's intended to put a gravel pit in. And he was going to start with a 15-acre LMO. And that LMO then would start in the school section, and it would expand to 250 acres. That's out of his mouth originally until he started feeling this resistance. And then all those stories changed. He also, when I asked, well, you have those leases all the way then to your private land on Garden Creek. If this thing is so good, and you're going to improve our roads, and you're going to make a swimming and fishing pond in 30 years when you're done, why don't you put it beside your own land? You can sit on your back porch and watch it. He said the traffic going in and out of Wyoming Boulevard would be unmanageable. We can't have that, and the aesthetics of putting it in there would not be comfortable. So we're going to put it in the school section. And then the next thing happened is he came up doing exploratory permits in section 2 right out my front door, and his original LMO was going to go right out my front door. And then he violated on the exploratory permits, some of the conditions of those. So now he has found out that the little road he kept trespassing on to get to the section 2 was a private road. And I know you all are familiar with that. And so we wanted to have him cited. He crossed 3 landowners to get there. But no one wanted to do that with Mr. Kyle True. And so the next thing he did was, now, as I see it from looking at on Thursday's open house forum that he had, he's going to put that now in the school section, back to what he told me, and it's going to start with an LMO. I went to the planning and zoning meeting this month, last week, and just looking at these subdivisions required this whole litany of requirements for these subdividers to get approval to put a subdivision in, so that the Planning and Zoning Commission could then approve it and send it on up to you guys. And I'm going, my gosh, he's going to put an LMO in, and he's going to look at stormwater? Is the only thing he has to look at? My gosh. And now this creek where he's I've asked the DEQ to send me the new LMO application to see exactly where it's going, but it appears to me it's going right on a dry creek bed in the school section, and then he's going to expand that to 250 acres. So it all boils down to this conditional use permit. And I want everybody in the audience to go to the rezoning resolution adopted in 2022, page 143, and I want you to look at the approval criteria for that. And I'd be more than happy to read it, but I'm going to run out of time here, so I'm not going to read it. But here, like 4, granting the conditional use permit will not detrimentally affect the public health, safety, and welfare, nullify the intent of the land use plan, the mountain land use plan, or this zoning resolution. Granting the conditional use permit will not impair the use of adjacent property or alter the character of the neighborhood. Wow, are you kidding me? He's got to meet all this stuff. Granting the conditional will not cause substantial or unmitigated traffic, parking, or environmental concerns. So I've heard all you guys come up here and say this, and these are emotional things, but they all apply right here. Granting the conditional use permit will not contribute to an overburdening of county services. And I just want to end with, a wise man one time said, a good deal is not a good deal unless all parties involved think it's a good deal. Do you all know who said that? I know you do, Mr. Chair. It's Mr. True's grandfather, Dave True, made that quote. And this is a bad deal for us. It's just not a good deal. Thank you.
Mr. Worker, are you aware, are you one of the board members of the CMPA?
I am not.
Okay. I hope that you folks in the audience and that organization is aware that commentary that we've been hearing at these meetings during the public comment section do relate directly to some of those items, health, safety, and welfare.
Thank you.
And those factors about the character of the neighborhood. We can take this, I suppose, as background.
Yeah.
But we can't take it as evidence. And so the kinds of comments that we've been hearing at our meetings for the last couple months, presenting that stuff at the time of the public hearing is evidence that this commission can rely on. So I would hope that everybody in the audience and everybody that's paying attention to this particular issue, and there, I'm sure 7,500 or more folks, understand that important distinction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You want me to clarify that? I think I heard someone say. So you all have the opportunity to tell us whatever you want to tell us, so in the 5 minutes that's allocated to you. We can't rely on what you're saying tonight, for example, as evidence in making a decision on a gravel pit application that hasn't been received. When we open it up for public hearing, that's when those comments can be relied on by this commission to prove or disprove these elements that Greg just talked about. Sorry, I'm still a lawyer at heart. Is that clear? You can tell us whatever you want now, but you need to repeat it when we have the public hearing. Are we gonna what? Go up and see it yourselves. I think every one of us have. I know every one of us have seen, if not all of the state lands, certainly that school section.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Stroman, 4145 Coates Road. I only have a rhetorical question for you. 3 words: scruples, ethics, conscience. If this same individual or company were to be in another county or another state, would they be granted the latitude of what we're experiencing here in Casper? Fighting for our mountain, fighting for our water, our homes, and our future. Just a thought. Thank you.
I'm Terry Weingarter, and I'm sure I was around this afternoon with your work session, your budget session. But anyway, I want you to know, as you well know, I hope to be up there one of these days, sitting in one of your chairs. I'm going to run for county commissioner, and I will not vote for this project. I will vote against a conditional use permit, guaranteed. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel Wasatsky. I live on Squaw Creek Road. At the town hall meeting we had, I asked Mr. True if he was going to do any testing of the water, making sure that our water was still drinkable and safe. I asked if he was going to have to help with any pre-testings beforehand to get all that. The answer I got from him was, we don't want to bother people with testing their wells to make sure they have safe drinking water. He also said that he felt that he would not need to do any of that because it was not going to affect him. And all I could think of at the time was, he's going to not do any of that so he can have deniability that he caused any problems with our wells and our drinking water, making it safe to drink. We've got lots of animals as well as people that live up there and depend on our water. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. Good evening, Commissioners, Chairman. Before I start the clock, if somebody donates time, can you get that? No.
We
No.
don't do that. I'm gonna,
All right.
thank you for joining us again, but for the record, will you state your name?
No problem. So tonight, I'm just unclear of this. Oh, Roberto Fares, I live on 5950 Coates Road.
I'm the husband of Riley Forrest. Okay. So I'm just unclear on, I'll start with a question, and I'll make an analogy. Like, on the expert, which side needs to prove what? And why one side has to bring the experts and the other guy doesn't have to bring the experts? I don't know who decides on that. But the analogy would be this. Let's say I'm in my driveway next to St. Anthony's Catholic Church downtown. Somebody shows up and says, hey, I have a permit to take one tire off your car. I said, are you sure, man? He said, you know, I got to drive. Oh, no, I have the permit in here. You said, are you sure this permit is for me downtown and it's not for somebody that lives in the middle of nowhere? So if they drive without one tire, even if they go off the road and stuff like that, you know. I said, oh, no, this is right here. I said, oh, I can't drive with three tires. I can have an accident. I can run somebody over. I can crash into the church itself, backing out of the driveway. I can cause all kinds of problems. I said, oh, no, you'll be fine. You don't even know. Like, when you start driving with three tires, you don't know how good it's going to be. It's like, once you experience it, everybody will want to drive with three tires. So my question is it for me, the guy that was sitting in the driveway, and you want to take one tire off the car, to prove that I'm going to cause all these accidents when it's well and known fact and common sense that might, with a high probability, might happen? Or is it on the other side to prove that I'm actually going to be safe and not cause anything? So that's the analogy. So with this LMO business and the law and everything, I know everybody's following the law, but this was intended to be done on some rancher's private land so he can use the dirt and whatever to maintain his own road. And even if he drives off the driveway with three tires, he's not going to hurt anybody. But it's not intended to put a gravel pit in the middle of town where cutting water, health. I mean, if we test the well waters, then everybody should get a CAT scan too of their chest. So this way, 5 years down the road, they can. So it just doesn't belong in a residential area. It belongs everywhere else. There's so many places. And for Casper to have this, it wouldn't make any sense from the tourism standpoint, from all the people that want to come here, all this money, all these people that are building pickleball things and gun mints and everything else. Why do we want to make it ugly? Why do I have to go to Jackson to look at beautiful mountain? Why can't I just stay here and look at it? It's just not good. If we truly have if our job is to truly maintain and conserve this for future generations and to take care of the town we live in, then anybody knows that this is not a good idea. I don't know how many times we have to come up here and say it. I don't know if we have to write it, give it, or I don't know about the proof thing. I know you're watching. But I mean, what is it gonna, like, how many times can we come up here and repeat? Is this beneficial to come up here every time and repeat? This analogy was new, at least. With the car, just to give you a break. But I mean, what do we need to do? Signatures, coming up here every night, stress going on with everybody, nobody sleeps. I mean, it's a detrimental thing all around. Even you guys probably on the street, people, so stressing you, everybody's stressed. It's like, it's not a good thing. Stress kills people, period. And it's so hard to get rid of stress in a normal daily lives. We don't need added no water, can't drink, like all kinds of craziness. So I don't know what has to be done. It's just, I hope God enters in the Holy Spirit enters in people's hearts and can see the right thing and make the right decision. Boom. Thank you.
I don't know if I can follow that. My name's Leah Smith. I live in Mills, and I just wanted to invite you guys to come into Mills and see the small gravel operation that's going on 2 blocks from my house. No digging involved, just lots of dirt dumping and crushing and transporting it from one truck to another truck. I have to drive a completely different direction to leave my subdivision because my cars get sandblasted, or I get stuck in all the long lines of big trucks. And it's much simpler, much smaller than this one's going to be. So it's really worrisome to see what's happening in my neighborhood that's been allowed for, I don't even know when that started. But if y'all get a chance, go take a look at that and envision what it will be like to have big excavators digging the holes and then all that equipment. And my understanding is Kyle wants to do this pretty much 24/7. At least in my neighborhood, they're not doing it 24/7, but it is noisy. It is lots of dust. I live upwind, thank heavens. But you shouldn't have to try to drive another direction just to get out of your subdivision because you can't drive past what's happening as far as the small operation that's going on in my neighborhood. I'm going to paraphrase what you said, Mr. Chairman, see if I'm right. What I'm hearing you say is that we have to keep coming back, and especially when that conditional use permit comes up, that's when you need us to come back and say all the things that we've been saying, because you can't do anything yet. But when that is actually applied for, you want us to come back and force and repeat what we've been telling you ad nauseum, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I
like that answer.
I don't, right, it's a short one for me, but here you go. We welcome any member of the public to come and talk to us about anything. And if y'all want to show up at every meeting and do this, you're fine. And that's good. And I think that shows your commitment, right? But as far as what we can legally rely on as evidence,
Right.
it's when we advertise for that public hearing, and we will provide plenty of notice, advanced warning, that's when you show up in force. And that's when you tell us what
The same
you've been
things.
telling us and anything else you want to tell
Okay.
us.
Well, I don't think you'll have a problem with people showing up in force for that particular meeting. So thank you, appreciate it.
What's your address over in Mills?
Are you going to hunt me down?
No. No. You said you live close to a gravel
It's
pit.
749 Discovery Street.
749. Okay. And then that gives us the ability to know which,
I think it's Mobile
operation over
Concrete that owns that operation right there, but there's this huge trucks driving in and out, and they dump dirt, and then they come back and they pick up the dirt after it goes through all these different machines, and I don't understand that process, but it's annoying, it's loud, it's, when it's raining, it's muddy, I mean, it shouldn't be in a residential area, and it is, and I know it was probably approved a bazillion years ago, but I've lived there for 10 years and I've never seen that kind of activity. So I don't know why all of a sudden we have all this dirt coming in and being chopped up and ground up and then transported back out. But it's something that's an issue in Mills right now, and we never thought that was going to happen. So, but that's, 749 Discovery Street, so just a couple blocks from that area. And you really shouldn't have to drive someplace else. And Coates Road people, they have no other road to take. They have to drive Coates Road. So it could be a huge issue. But trust me, we will all be back. Thank you.
Well, I'm kind of nervous speaking in public, and I didn't come prepared, but I've done some research on this groundwater and
Good evening.
surface water.
would you state your name and address?
Yes, my name is Bill O'Keefe. I'm a resident of Casper, but I utilize the mountain and the county to probably full extent, almost out daily doing something now that I'm retired. Well, from what I've researched, this will have impact on groundwater and surface water. My question is to you is, coming from me, that's an opinion. Will we need a registered geologist or somebody to represent the citizens of Natrona County and Casper, or will our county commissioners research more into this, since you represent us, the citizens of Casper and Natrona County? I think, from what I've heard, we all maybe need some guidance on how to approach this and be effective, since it's a legal issue. What studies would we have to give to defend ourselves against True?
Commissioner Laird.
Let me see if I can, because this is confusing, and I understand.
Well, I think it's a legal issue, so it.
Well, let me have a minute.
Okay, I
Let me
will.
have a minute.
Excuse me.
I'm gonna explain it to you.
Okay,
I'm gonna use an analogy, but I'm not as good as Dr. Farr is on his, but.
okay.
So let's say that this whole group here comes in and says, we're all for Trump, we don't like him getting railroaded down there, he didn't have anything to do with that girl, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. Now, it doesn't count unless you go to the trial and you testify on his behalf. So what our chairman was saying earlier is, it's nice to see all of you all. Now I know more people on Coast Road and Squaw Creek than I ever knew since I've lived here, and I'm really happy to do that. And tell us what you think. We got this. We got understanding of what you're saying, every word of it. If you want to keep coming in every meeting, it's okay with me. Now, the one that counts is when the notice is sent out. Well, if True comes and applies for a conditional use permit, we set it for a hearing. He has to go through the zoning board first, and you ought to go to that meeting too. You ought to fill that room up too, so that you can be known, so it won't be said you didn't show up and you didn't say anything. Then whatever the zoning board does, it comes here, and we make generally the final decision on that. But we have a hearing, and the chairman will announce the hearing, and it'll be something similar to this, and then you come up and say your similar things and give the knowledge you have, because some of you are experts and don't even know it. And your opinion is important as long as it's based on facts. I mean, most of us know that when you go, dig into the side of a mountain, it can affect the water. So, it's just living here in Wyoming and understanding that. We have people on this board that understand these issues. Now, we're like a court. If Mr. True came in and said, well, I'm a resident of the Natrona County, you guys are my representatives. Well, we are. We're everybody's. So, but he doesn't come in here and say, you guys got to go hire a geologist for me. He has to go do that himself if he wants this. He has to present his information first to the state of Wyoming. So I don't know what you're telling the governor. I don't know what you're telling Chuck Gray, Miss Degenfelder, who are all elected by you all. They're on the board that has something to do with this. So I'm assuming you're giving them your petitions. You're saying the things you're saying to us. You're letting that governor know you got 7,500 people up here that's against this, that it's in the middle of your neighborhood, and you don't want it. I'm assuming you've done all that. Now, if they have board meetings down there dealing with it, you better get on down there and testify. Because you can't walk around the courthouse saying, well, we think Trump should get elected. You got to go vote for him. So when it's time, you come in here. Because we've heard all this. So we got it. We're smart men. We understand it. I've researched into the whole subject matter. I understand what the law is. I've talked to an expert in gravel pits that tells me what they have to do. I understand it all. But we have to have a hearing. We have to give Mr. True a fair hearing. We have to give you guys a fair hearing. We have to hear what gets said. We have to hear what the experts say. And some of you are experts. You've got Jason. I think he's an expert in understanding this water issue. I understand you've all hired a lawyer. That'll be good. So you're going to get an absolute fair hearing from this commission.
Okay.
Most of us have lived here most of our lives. I know what Casper Mountain means, but I have to be fair to all my constituents.
I understand.
And when they come in here, they're going to get a fair hearing. And then I'm going to make a decision. And I'm going to make my own decision, and they're going to make their own decision. And if there's at least 3 commissioners that say, no, you can't do it, that passes. If there's 3 that say yes, they give him the permit. Then the next step is, somebody's gonna file some sort of a, document, a petition with the district court to determine whether what we did was fair. Because we just can't make a decision based on no evidence. If that's appealed to a Supreme Court, they say, well, where's the evidence? Nobody came in here and said anything. Few people, just didn't want something in their backyard. Well, you got a hydrologist, you got a doctor, you've got other, I think Werger even worked for the Trues. He understands some of these things. So you have got to present your case. I would tell the same thing to Mr. True. If you want this, you better hire all your experts and get on down to the governor's office, because we're not the ones in charge of giving him these leases. And we're not the ones in charge of the way the governor ran those hearings. And we're not and they've already ruled in one case out of Teton County that the commissioners can't tell the state what to do with their own state land. That does not surprise me one bit. Now, we have some rules that have to be abided by. We have a right to protect our citizens. Just because you can put a gravel pit somewhere doesn't mean you can run over them, doesn't mean you can run it 24 hours a day, doesn't mean you can make all the noise in the world. We have a duty to protect our citizens, all of our citizens. And then there's a balance there. And we'll get to that. And I know you're all good people, and I know exactly where you're coming from, and I understand the situation. I've talked to Mr. True. I know his family. I think they're all good people. This isn't about somebody being a bad person. This is about whether a gravel pit should go up in somebody's neighborhood. You heard the lady from Mills. Nobody wants a gravel pit in their backyard. So it's good that you're all band together and you're all up there to protect your neighborhood, and you better be on a crusade, because he's on a crusade, you're on a crusade, but we're gonna be fair in this hearing. We're not gonna overlook anything. We're not gonna, if it was my brother-in-law that wanted it, I wouldn't even vote on it. But I know a lot of the people in here. I know the truth from my whole life. I've heard all these quotes. So now I'm sitting here as a Wyoming native. I've got to make a decision. I'm gonna make it. I guarantee you that, and it's gonna be fair. And I believe all of these gentlemen are gonna do the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Laird and the commissioners. Like I said, I was kind of ignorant on things. I just didn't know what.
If you have any other questions, just
I
jump right
appreciate
in and
it.
ask
I
me.
appreciate it. I might have been the only one that needed educated on it, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Morning, gentlemen, or afternoon, I guess. My name is Condo Edwards. I live at 3870 Squaw Creek Road. And I'm sure, Mr. Al Laird knows me from way back when he taught me hockey.
I knew your dad, too.
Yep. My grandparents homesteaded up Squaw Creek. So we've had land up there 80 years. My well is 40 feet deep. He plans on going 25 feet deep. And I'm sure, as most people, what their wells are, but water travels through gravel. I worked in the mines for 20 years. Just to give you a little history. I know how the water runs. I've watched it going 300-400 feet through gravel. It travels that way. I've also been in logistics, so I know what kind of trouble they're going to have trying to get out on to CY Avenue. There is a lot of issues there. Now, with being in the mines, I also spent a lot of time as a foreman, had to learn all the rules for the minings. So with an LMO, my understanding is he's not going to have air quality. So with air quality, I don't know about you guys, but I live at the almost CY, and my truck gets sandblasted. Well, you're going to add more of that to it. I'm going to have replace my windshield every year instead of every 3 years with the prevailing winds, which he
Mr. True neglected to bring up, when he brought up all these gravel pits, he's got $400,000, $500,000, $800,000 homes, but none of them are pointed towards the prevailing winds. If you go back and look at the map and look at which way the prevailing winds are, they are not pointed in the same direction. So, with that said, at the mines, you got to have it 2 miles out with a tester. You might be working 10 miles away with 2 mile buffer fee, and you're still setting them off. And that's doing with all the watering and everything, trying to keep all the dust you can down. Now, he might try his hardest, but there's no way he's going to be able to keep all the dust down. And it's just going to get worse the bigger he gets. Also, I was in the blasting department for 10 years. I blasted. So I know a lot about blasting and doing a lot of that. So I know which way and prevailing winds, and I know a lot about that. And I know you guys are just listening to me, and I understand that. Also, I don't know if any of you guys have had their wells tested. My wife has an adult with disabilities that we take care of, so we had to have our well tested every year for the last 15 years. So I have all the records of my well for the last 15 years that has been tested. So when it gets dry up the creek, and the creek starts to dry up because of the summers we've had towards the end of the year, my well goes down. So even that water quits running through my creek real slow, my well goes down and I start pumping up sand. So I know what it's going to do to my well, and I'm going to lose it if he starts messing with the well or with the water up there. I already see it when we have droughts. So just my personal advice on it, or opinion on it. I mean, I've dealt with it, and I've worked in gravel pits, so I know what they do also. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Just a comment, I think everybody in Wyoming knows what a Wyoming wind can do with dust and dirt.
Anyone else? Anyone else having public comment tonight? Very well. We will have commissioner comments. Commissioner Laird.
We can't do anything other than educate ourselves and until something's filed. It's like the judge sitting over there at the courthouse. You can't do anything till somebody files the lawsuit. And that's kind of how we're sitting here. Now, maybe he won't file and do it. I don't know. Now, if he does, you all are prepared. He's going to be prepared. We're going to understand this. I talked to the county attorney earlier today. I need to see a legal memo on all of the ramifications legally of the statutes that apply here, because they're very complicated. And when you cite one, such as our zoning regulations, there's a Wyoming statute that deals with this whole thing and does allude to zoning. Then you get a Wyoming Supreme Court case that says that the state, the governor and his board are the ones that run state land. That's the way it is. We can run county stuff. We can protect our people with our county rules. The state has control over their own property, just like you have control over your own property and what happens on your own property. So this is a complicated matter legally, and we're going to get it sorted out. And it's going to be sorted out properly. And I represent all of you. So do these men. That's what it says on the statutes. It says we're told what we have to do. We just can't go off and do whatever we want to do. We've got to follow the statutes very clearly. Nicolason and I are sworn attorneys. We still have law licenses. We have to follow what our oath there tells us we have to do. And I intend to do it to the letter. That's my feeling.
Greg, I appreciate you reading those. Those are the same ones that I read at the SLIB board meeting. That's what we have to go by. And those are the things that are required. And it's not you have to meet one or two of them. You have to meet all of those standards to get a conditional use permit granted. So it's not an easy thing for people to get a conditional use permit granted to them. And, you know, when he read those, I was watching every one of your expressions, and you all knew exactly what points each one of those adhered to. You know, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It really is. There's a lot of things that have to be met. And that's what we're going to be looking at. But those are the things that you have to look at. You know, you guys are way ahead of the game. I mean, you really are, because you started out early and your momentum is going stronger and stronger. You guys are collecting more and more information all the time on a regular basis. It's just like what Casey said about the FEMA and the floodplain stuff. You know, when you go up and you've got that whole area is in a floodplain, and that puts it into a whole different category also. And I know Kyle actually brought that up at that meeting also. So there's a lot of things out there that need to be looked at, that have to be examined when it comes before us. And so I applaud you. You're doing your research. You're finding out the information. You're asking questions. But don't be afraid to continue to ask those. I know a lot of you have sent us emails. I've tried to answer every one of the ones that you guys have sent to me, and I'm going to continue to do that. If you've got questions about stuff, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We represent all the citizens of the county. And you guys show that you've got 7,500 signatures on there. That's impressive. It's tough to get it's tough to get people to sign anything anymore, and to get that much support throughout the county is impressive. So I just wanted to applaud you guys for that.
Commissioner Friel.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming out here, and the conversations that I've had in the last couple of weeks, even when I was gone, some have been some pretty in-depth conversations, and I learn off of each one of those as they happen. I want to reiterate what the chairman said, because I think I heard a comment made out here, how do we prove this, when he was talking about evidence. What the chairman is saying is that everything that you bring to us every night that you come here, we listen to, and we take it in, and we go back and do research on some of the things that maybe we don't quite have all the details on. But when it comes to an actual hearing, your testimony that you give is evidence. You don't have to come in here and have it something tangible to say, hey, this is what happened. It's doing what you're doing now and coming in and telling us how it's going to affect you and how it's going to affect the neighborhood and the different things that are going to take place. That's evidence. That's exactly what he's talking about. It's not something you're bringing in. It's something that you're telling us, just like you have been for a few months now. So I just want to reiterate that's exactly what the chairman's trying to say. Again, thank you, everybody, for coming down here. A couple things that I just want to add. Outside of this, College National Finals Rodeo is here 9th through the 15th. They start setting up here in a couple weeks. And so There's going to be a lot of events downtown for that. It's 25th year, so if you get the opportunity to go out and take it in, you need to. This event just keeps getting bigger and better every year. I think you're going to see some pretty amazing things are going to be put out this year with a partnership with a new big building up there that they're putting up for next year. So, and other than that, that's all I got for tonight.
Sitting point. I'm really not going to have a whole lot that isn't already said by all three prior to and probably following up. It is good seeing you. Again, we need to hear from you, but your testimony, we can't drive that point home enough. Your testimony at the time of the hearing is what we need to hear. Love hearing, like Steve said, hearing the points that are out there so that we can learn, educate ourselves. So when that hearing does come, if it does come, depending on what the state does, yeah, we'll be more knowledgeable at that point. The place and the time to try to head this off is with the state, though. So I'd really encourage you, make sure you stay up with what the state's doing on this. That's the best place to head this off, so it doesn't even come to us. If that's your choice of going to, right? See what they do. On a lighter side, something not to do with the gravel pit. Terry, I'm glad to hear you're running. It wouldn't be a local election without you running for something.
Never give up.
Thanks for coming. You know, it is good to hear that you may, or some of you may have an attorney that can assist you through this process. I think that's important. You don't all need attorneys, but you ought to have one good one at least that can represent your interests and actually provide legal advice, because we can't do that. You don't want us to do that. Mr. True doesn't want us to do that. That's not our job, and it wouldn't be appropriate. You know, when Greg, Mr. Werger, talked about the conditional use permit criteria, I just was wondering who in this room has concerns and could speak to traffic, parking, or environmental problems. Raise your hand. Traffic. Do you have any concerns about traffic? Do you have any concerns about parking, where these big trucks might park? Who in this room could talk about the effects on the use of adjacent property? Raise your hand. Like, do you have any concerns about use on adjacent property or altering the character of the neighborhood? Right. Affecting negatively the public health, safety, or welfare. So the hands that are raised just now are some of the hands, not all of them, but some of the hands that could show up at the time of the public hearing and express those concerns, which will go directly to the elements that we have to hear and make decisions on. So again, we can't provide legal advice to you. I think the message is hopefully loud and clear on, you know, yeah, show up, tell us what you want us to know, but at the time of the hearing, show up and give us evidence on which we can rely. Anyway, thanks for your time tonight. Good to see everybody again. Maybe see you in 2